Welcome back to the Joe Show on AFN, the Eagle serving America's best. I'm Sergeant Andre Clark, and on the phone we have some very special guests. We have Colonel Sara Breckenridge-Sproat, the Chief Nurse, Regional Health Command Europe. We also have Colonel Michelle Munro, the Assistant Chief Nurse at Landstuhl, and Colonel Louis Stout. He's the Chief of Clinical Operations for the 30th Medical Brigade. How's everyone doing today?
We're great. Thanks for having us.
Oh, thanks for
Doing
being
well,
on.
thank you.
All right, so I've got a question for you. It's National Nurses Week, so can each of you talk about why you wanted to be a nurse, and more specifically, why do you want to be an Army nurse? Or did that, did you all just end up being Army nurses?
Thanks, Sergeant Clark. I'll start the answer with that one. I always appreciated where I was born and how I wanted to give back. My grandfather was a physician in the Army Air Corps. My father was Navy, and I've always had a strong sense of patriotism and national pride. My grandfather was a Canadian, and my father's first-generation American, so the serving as an Army nurse gave me two things: being with people and a service.
This is Colonel Michelle Munro, and I decided to become a nurse when I was 6 years old. My mom actually had Hodgkin's disease at that time, and it was really the nurse that touched my life at an early age, at 6. And the interesting thing was we used to go in to my mom's oncology appointments, and this nurse would color with us, play games with us, and really keep us occupied. And the interesting thing was this was a military treatment facility. So this was a military hospital that allowed children to come in to the oncology appointment. And that nurse had such a significant effect on my life that I still remember her name today. It was Nurse Kudret. And so joining the military felt like it was just a way to give back to what she actually allowed me to do, or that effect she had on me at an early age. Lou?
Hey, good morning. It's Colonel Stout, and I was definitely looking for opportunities in healthcare. My parents volunteered for an ambulance while I was growing up, and my older sister became a nurse. So I started looking for different areas in healthcare and found that nursing was really going to give me what looked like the most opportunities. While I was doing that, going through school, I got introduced to Army nursing, and it just took off from there. I found out that not only could I do nursing, and serve in the healthcare field, but there was the military, which had tremendous opportunities to see the world.
All right, you know what? That's very interesting. So we're going to have more with all these great medical professionals when we return. Welcome back to the Joe Show on AFN, the Eagle serving America's best. On the phone, I still have my very special guest. We have Colonel Sara Breckenridge-Sproat, and she's the Chief Nurse of Regional Health Command Europe. Also, Colonel Michelle Munro, the Assistant Chief Nurse at Landstuhl, and Colonel Louis Stout. He's the Chief of Clinical Operations for the 30th Medical Brigade. So we just talked about, kind of why you wanted to be nurses. So now I've got another question. So you all have different experiences and specialties. So can you each talk a little bit about your experiences as an Army nurse?
Sure, thanks for that. We all come from a little bit different backgrounds, so I think it's great to start with, I was ROTC, which I knew from an early age that I wanted to combine nursing and the military, and when the recruiter said, we'll pay for your college, it was kind of a no-brainer for me. It was a win-win thing that I was going to do something I love. My father, as I said, was Navy, and he's like, well, why aren't you joining the Navy? Why are you joining the Army? And my mom said, the Air Force, you look better in blue. Why don't you think about joining the Air Force? And I said, the Army's paying my way through school. And so both my parents said, wow, the Army is the best place ever, hooah. And so since then, I've had every kind of experience from being a bedside medical surgical nurse, intensive care, field units. I've been an operations officer. I've been a deputy commander, and now as the Chief Nurse of Regional Health Command Europe, really our scope of services is from Antarctica all the way up to the Arctic Circle, all through Africa, side to side. All of the patients across this sphere are our patients. So you really have a huge effect. I've had the opportunity to be a reservist. I have a master's degree in informatics, which is the use of computers in healthcare, and a PhD in health services research. So I've had a lot of fun experiences and just amazing opportunities as an Army nurse.
Yeah, definitely sounds like it. All right, what about you, Colonel Munro?
I actually have a very different path. I joined the Army through the direct commission, which meant I had no military affiliation throughout my entire college lifetime. And with that, the Army Nurse Candidate Program is the program that actually brought me in. So the recruiter came to our school and said, I can give you some money to join the Army. And being someone who actually had to work their way through college and pay for the college themselves, this looked like a great opportunity. And interestingly enough, my plan was to only stay 4 years. 24, almost 25 years later, here I am. So it's definitely been a good career. And my assignments have ranged from very different, lots of diversity. And I started out in OBGYN, but shifted to the ER, and then actually shifted back as the Army paid for my master's degree, and I became a nurse midwife. So I get to deliver babies. How cool is that? Most people don't realize that we actually have midwives in the military services, to include the Army. So it's a lot of fun when people hear, you're an Army midwife? How does that work? Do you deliver at home? So those are fun questions. But I've gotten to deploy as a research nurse. I have worked at the Uniformed Services University as the commandant, overseeing all the military students. It's an opportunity for nurses to go back for their advanced degrees. And now I'm here at Landstuhl, one of the best military hospitals that actually is a throughput for any soldier injured on the battlefield. And future assignments for me include the opportunity to be a commander at a hospital back in the U.S. So, as I say, lots of opportunities in the military, and I know that Lou shares that, and he will be able to share that as well.
Yeah, I also came in through ROTC. I was in college and then got the opportunity to join the ROTC program. And then, throughout my service, I've done everything from serve as a company commander, been in a special operations battalion. Mostly what I've done over the past 15 years has been service centered around the burn center and the burn flight team. Been stationed there a couple of times, which has been a tremendous opportunity, transporting casualties over transatlantic flights, and also opportunities to deploy several times, doing detainee health care. Just a lot of different opportunities in the military, and now serving here in Europe, where we're supporting Atlantic Resolve and the rotational forces that have been brought back into Europe and have been pushed forward through all the Eastern countries.
Welcome back to the Joe Show on AFN, the Eagle, serving America's best. I'm Sergeant Andre Clark here with a very special medical team. We have Colonel Sara Breckenridge-Sproat, the Chief Nurse of Regional Health Command Europe, Colonel Michelle Munro, the Assistant Chief Nurse at Landstuhl, and also Colonel Louis Stout, the Chief of Clinical Operations for the 30th Medical Brigade. How's everyone doing today?
Great. Cool.
All right, so I've got a question for you. So what other jobs are available to Army nurses? And as Army nurses, what opportunities are available? Can you deploy? Can you expect to only work in a clinic or a hospital?
So there is just tremendous opportunities, both in nursing and then in Army nursing. What I've found over the years, nursing's just got so many different aspects of the career field that you can move into. From children, pediatrics to adults to older people, geriatrics. There's critical care. There's outpatient services, inpatient services, the operating room. Whatever specialty area, and each of us, has chosen a different portion of that career field. As I mentioned before, my focus has really been in burn care, which I have found to just be a fascinating area of trauma and critical care. I'd done critical care for many years, and a lot of it had become somewhat routine until I was assigned to the burn center, and it really invigorated me on just a specialty area that I've continued to publish on, speak on over the years. It's just very fascinating. It's unfortunate that it happens. It is a large part of our combat casualties that occur. Burns will happen to our casualties, and then they're transported over. And the Department of Defense only has one burn center for the Army, Navy, or Air Force. It's the U.S. Army Burn Center in San Antonio. So that's the one place that the military members are brought, and we care for all of them. And it's with the Institute of Surgical Research, and from there we're doing research in just a host of different areas in trauma and critical care. And through combat, we make a lot of advances in medicine, from Vietnam, Korea, and through the current conflicts. And as we make those advances, that then goes out into the civilian world, and they can use a lot of those techniques to help with medicine overall.
All right. So what would you tell someone who is interested in a career in nursing?
I would tell them that there's a reason that this is the #1 trusted profession in the United States. It is an amazing connection to people, to be able to care for people at their most vulnerable state. I love being connected to people, the ability to affect lives, the opportunities that I've received, and really to be able to contribute to my potential. Often people know the role of a nurse as defined by the TV. It is a bedside nurse. Sometimes they're not represented in the most professional manner. But to me, it is so much more than what you've seen on TV. We've talked about deployments. That's the quintessential experience of an Army nurse, is to be able to care for America's sons and daughters at their points of injury. I also like to say that the Army and the Army Nurse Corps has been very good to me and my family. Between my husband and I, we have 3 master's degrees, a PhD, and an MD. We've only ever had one school loan, and that was for my husband's undergraduate degree. I've been dual military for 26 years, and in the Army Married Couples Program, we've been together for most of that, save for times like schools that we've selected and, of course, deployment. I love being a nurse, and I love being an American, so I combine those two things into my service as an Army nurse.
All right, very nice. We have more with our medical team when we return. Welcome back to the Joe Show on AFN, the Eagle, serving America's best. On the phone, we have our medical team. We have Colonel Sara Breckenridge-Sproat, the Chief Nurse of Regional Health Command Europe. We also have Colonel Michelle Munro, the Assistant Chief Nurse at Landstuhl, and Colonel Louis Stout, the Chief of Clinical Operations for the 30th Medical Brigade. So we've had some great conversations. I don't want to say in the past because it wasn't that long ago, but we've had some great topics. I've got another question. So the theme of this year's National Nurses Week is nursing, the balance of mind, body, and spirit. So what does that mean to you?
Well, I'd first like to share with you the American Nurses Association's definition. It's a healthy nurse is someone who actively focuses on creating and maintaining a balance and synergy of physical, intellectual, emotional, social, spiritual, personal, and professional well-being. That's a lot to talk about, but essentially what that means to us as Army nurses is really we have to have that balance. If one thing is actually not in balance, if the spirit is down or broken, then the mind and body doesn't actually heal. So we really have to focus on the whole person in order to provide healing and resiliency. This is so important, especially as an Army nurse, because we deploy, and we have not only deployed, but here at the hospital, we have those soldiers who may have been injured that come back here that have deployed, and we take care of them. and lifting their spirits and healing their mind and body is so important for that whole approach, holistic approach to care.
Sergeant Clark, I also think that really the theme is a lot of what we've talked about today, body, mind, and spirit. So you've heard from 3 very senior Army Nurse Corps officers about the balance of each of those over the courses of our career. So the theme resonates really across the spectrum of nursing.
Is there anything you would like listeners to know about the Army Nurses Corps?
So, as Colonel Stout, the Army Nurse Corps, again, as I've said, just gives so many opportunities to serve not only nursing and the healthcare field, but also the Army portion of it. I've had opportunities to do all of the Army courses that I could hope for, from Air Assault School, Airborne, Jump Master, Expert Field Medical Badge, serving on the Burn Flight Team, all of those Army things that are out there, there's opportunities to do. My entire career has been as an Army Nurse Corps officer, and the opportunities definitely come up. What we focus on mostly is the readiness of our soldiers, not just ourselves, but the soldiers in our units and throughout the rest of the military. Having them medically ready at all times is very important, because that is how we measure our ability to deploy. So we have to be ready to deploy at any time, particularly here in Europe. As we know, with Atlantic Resolve and the current operations that we have going on, our units are called on continuously, both in service here in Europe and then also support to AFRICOM, as well as still being in support of CENTCOM. So our readiness is what we look at as part of the healthcare team, and Army Nurse Corps is integral to getting that done.
All right. You know what? You guys have been awesome guests. I want to thank you for being on the Joe Show, and I hope that you visit us again sometime.
Thanks, Sergeant Clark, for having us.